All right, everybody, welcome to your patient orientation class. I'm Dr. David Hausman. If I haven't met you for whatever reason, I founded this clinic, Stronghold Health. Over the next 30 minutes, we're going to be spending some time really just laying the groundwork so you have a better understanding of what exactly we're looking for on your x-rays. Pretty simple. And then after this video, we'll be sitting down with you, either myself or one of the doctors, to go over your personal x-ray results and what exactly is taking place beneath the surface so that you have a better understanding of how to take the right steps to move your body in the right direction. So not only are you getting out of pain, but you can have health. And so that leads right into really the foundation of where we start things, which is two questions that every single person has to ask at some point in their life. The first question is real simple. What's the single greatest asset that every single one of us has to have if you want to see your goals, your dreams, your hopes come to pass? Anybody?
Life.
Life? Okay. No? So the answer isn't wealth, right? Because like I could have all of the riches on the face of the planet, I could be driving a Maserati, I could be in a mansion, but I can't enjoy any of those things. I could have the best relationships on the face of the planet, and again, I can't enjoy those relationships if I don't have what? My health. So when it comes down to it, the most important asset that every single one of us has to have is health. Because without health, you can't enjoy anything in life. So with that being said, if we start looking at our healthcare system in America, why am I having you watch a patient orientation video? Because I have to make sure that you understand what health is. Very simply, the second question is, what is health? If you look at healthcare system in our country, it really isn't a healthcare system, it's more of a sick care system. Because most of what doctors, emergency care, hospitals, all focus on are going to be symptoms. It's going to be effects. It's not going to be underlying cause. And part of the reason why that's happening is because a lot of us really just don't have a good understanding of what health actually is. So if we were to look at the World Health Organization's website and we said, what is the definition of health according to them? Here it is, 4 leading authority on health in our world. They said that health isn't the absence of symptoms. Health is when your body is functioning and healing at 100%. So at your full God-given potential. So with that being said, if I were walking around and I were judging my health based on how I feel, then I could completely be missing the mark. You look at the second and third leading cause of death in our country today, they're heart disease and cancer. So with heart disease, if I have heart disease developing in my body right now, do I feel it typically? Probably not. I may end up having high blood pressure and I don't feel high blood pressure. I don't feel congestive heart failure. And so because of that, it is the second leading cause of death in our country. So if I'm judging my health based on how I feel, sometimes it may end up being a little too late to find out that I'm not healthy. And then you start looking at how I look, being on the cover of Men's Health and Fitness magazine, exercising, eating really well, nutrition. These are all super important aspects of health, but they're not a working definition of health. And so because of that, if I chase any one of these and I place precedence on them, I could end up extremely missing the mark when it comes to whether or not I'm healthy. So when you look at the definition of health, it says health is when our body is functioning at 100%. So it's not just the absence of symptoms. It means I wake up tomorrow morning and I don't have neck pain, I don't have the low back pain. Magically it goes away. First of all, that would be pretty awesome, right? Yeah. But if it did go away, that wouldn't necessarily mean that I'm healthy. I'm healthy when my body's functioning at its full God-given potential. So that leads me to a real simple deductive line of reasoning. And if health has everything to do with function and my body working the way it's supposed to, then if I wanted to be healthy, where do you think the first place is that I should look to see if I'm healthy? And the answer is going to be the one organ in our body that controls every single function. So it's going to be the organ in our body that tells my heart how to beat, my lungs how to breathe, my stomach how to digest food. That organ, it's our brain. And God put 80 to 120 years of life right there in your brain, and that life flows from your brain, down your spinal cord, out those nerves or wires to every single organ, every cell, every tissue of your body. So for my heart to be beating in my chest right now, the life that's in my brain has to be able to get down that spinal cord, out that nerve going to my heart to tell my heart how to beat. So when it comes down to it, raise your hand if before you guys met me, before you came into this clinic, before you found us on Facebook or Google, any doctor had ever actually checked to see how well is your brain, your spinal cord, and your nervous system actually working. Yeah, so one person, and it was probably at another chiropractic office, right?
Yep.
So that's the problem with our country right now, and that's part of the reason why I get so jazzed up about this, is because so many people that are chasing health, and it's our greatest asset we all want it, but sometimes we're looking in the wrong place. Now, you could have a cardiologist, you can have a pulmonologist, you can have a gastroenterologist, you have specialists for every single organ in the body, which is great because we need them, but if I'm dealing with a heart issue and all I do is look at that heart, I could completely miss the mark if it's a nerve problem causing that heart issue. For instance, if I come along and my life coming from my brain down that spinal cord, out that nerves, telling my heart how to beat, and then God forbid I get into a car accident, right? And in that car accident, I were to, boom, cut that nerve in half going to my heart, what happens to my heart?
Heart dies.
Yeah, heart stops beating, so bad news bears, I'm gone, obviously. Now, if instead of cutting that nerve, let's say in that same car accident, now I've just gotten damage on that nerve. That nerve is getting pinched. The same nerve going to my heart, getting pinched, now it's working at 80%. So the very best that that nerve in my heart can work is 80%. What's the best you'd ever expect for my heart to be working? 80%. Like, it's physically impossible that my heart would beat at its full God-given potential at 100% if the nerves going to it are damaged at 80%. So I could be looking at the heart. I could take your blood pressure. I could do an echocardiogram. I could do all the tests on the face of the planet with the heart, but if I don't look at what's damaging that nerve, or the nerve itself that's controlling that heart, I could completely miss the mark. Makes sense, right? In fact, when you start looking at this in a little bit more detail, the definition of health really, with it having to do everything with function, if we were to put this on a scale, and we were to say, okay, over here on the left-hand side is 0%, and at 0% function, no life, my body isn't working, all the organs are dead, I am what? Dead. Okay. Just making sure you guys are all alive. Yeah, so I'm dead. 0% function, now 100% function, this is going to be our working definition of health. Cool? So my question for you is, if you came in with the low back pain, you came in with the neck pain, you came in with the headaches, you came in with the numbness and tingling, where are you at on this scale of life? On this scale of health?
50%.
So not at 100, someone said 50%. Here's the reality. The research indicates that just the weight of a dime, cool, how much does a dime weigh? 10 millimeters of mercury in terms of pressure. If I were to take a dime and just put it on the nerve, go into my heart, instead of my heart working at 100%, it would drop the function of how well my heart beats all the way down to 60%. And in the same research, what they ended up finding was, it wasn't when I'm at 90% function, 80%, 70%, but it was when I got down to that threshold of 60% right there, where I have my first symptom. So that means the pain that you're experiencing. That means the high blood pressure that you're having. It means that the digestive disorders and imbalances that you're having, when you get the symptom and then you run to the medicine cabinet or run to the doctor when our kids get sick, where do we take them? To the doctor. And I'm not saying this egotistically, I'm just trying to point out the fact that most of us live right here. We wait until the symptom shows up to determine whether or not we're healthy. I wake up this morning and I feel really crappy. I'm gonna call into work for what? Sick day, right? We have that synonymous sickness, symptoms. But no symptoms, if my symptoms go away, it doesn't mean I'm healthy, because what if my heart were beating at 90%? 90% of my heart function, healthy or sick? Answer is sick, technically by definition. Now I might not be feeling it, so we take the medication, we cover up the symptom. Does that ever drive us in this direction, closer towards functioning and healing at 100%? No. We all know from the side effects from a lot of the medications, all it really does is let it get worse over time. So I'm here today to make sure that that doesn't happen to you. So this is part of the reason why we're looking at the nervous system, because for a lot of us, if you haven't ever had this system evaluated before, thank God you came into our clinic and you did have it evaluated. The best way to be able to do this is a thermography scan. It's a computerized nerve scan. We run it with you. It shows up on the computer. It shows us where you've got imbalance around the spine. And then boom, after that, we got to take some x-rays. And I always get this question like, well, why do you take x-rays? What are you looking for? Very simply, if this is the most important system in our body, it runs, coordinates, harmonizes, regulates, controls every single organ and system, it's got to be protected, and it is. So that's why we have bones. Cool? So the bones in our spine surround and protect our nervous system and protect 58 million nerves flowing through that spinal cord, bringing life to every single part of my body. So from a front view, what am I looking for? Nice and straight. If it isn't straight, that's called scoliosis. Everybody's heard that term. I'm still kind of flabbergasted that everybody knows that word. But side curve in the spine, scoliosis, not good. We're looking for nice and straight. What about from the side view? From a side view, we're looking for 3 curves. A forward curve in our low back, a backward curve in our mid-spine, and then a forward curve in our neck. Very similar to what you're going to see here. Each of those curves have different angles. We'll talk about it in a minute here on x-rays. If I don't have the curve from the side view, and I start to lose that curve, would you say healthy or sick? Well, yeah, sick, but the problem is I didn't establish the precedence for this just yet. When I lose my proper structure, instead of protecting my nerves, when my spine goes out of alignment, it actually starts to wreak havoc and damage to our nervous system. Which is kind of crazy because the very thing that protects our nerves, when it goes out of the right structure, instead of protecting, starts to damage. And so I can show you this in person, or Dr. John or any of the doctors in our office, but right here, when the bones are lined up properly, that nerve is nice, healthy, and happy. I come along, I drive like a thug, sleep like a pretzel, right? All the things that I do, whatever it is, I start shifting my spine, and as I shift my spine, boom, instead of protect the nerve, it's pinching it. Healthy, sick, no pain, pain. Relaxed muscle, tight muscle. What's the difference between health and sickness? Some people, it could be 2%. But it doesn't take a lot to affect the nerves. So that's what we're looking for on the x-rays, essentially. And we're going to start looking at some example x-rays here in just a second, so we have a better understanding of exactly what that means. So just so we're clear, I have to answer this question now. How does it happen? Because everybody always asks, well, yeah, okay, so x-rays, couldn't you take x-rays on everybody's spine and they have a problem? And the answer is yes. But here's the thing, you're not born with all 3 of these curves. You're only born with one of them. Anybody guess which one? Middle part of the back. So in the middle part of the back, you're born with that curve, then baby you starts to crawl. And as you start to crawl, you start picking your head up and developing your neck muscles. Savvy? Okay. Now, you start learning how to walk, and when you walk, you fall 5,000 times by the age of 5 learning how to walk, but that's when you develop your low back curve. Why is it that everybody in America has neck pain, low back pain? Neck bulging disc, low back bulging disc. Neck and low back issues, but rarely is it here. The answer is because either A, you never developed it properly from when you were born, or B, you developed it properly, but then mama, she never came along and taught you how to brush your teeth with your spine. Like, what the heck's that mean? Well, you were taught to brush your teeth, and you do it every single day. You probably did it this morning without even thinking about it. At what point did mom come along and teach you how to take care of, nurture, and support the curve in your spine? Didn't. So all the things that we do over the course of our lifetime, the cumulative effect of it, 8, 10, 15, 25 years of doing all the same repetitive actions. You don't have to get in a car accident. You don't have to have major significant physical trauma. It's just the repetitive action. Slowly, over time, you start losing proper structure. Then our body builds muscle memory around that, and we end up having chronic issues. Yeah, that's why I'm like, what? You haven't ever had x-rays taken on your spine? I'm like, crazy. We need to get that checked out. So, with that being said, basically, where do you guys think the first place is that I'm going to look to see whether or not you're having spine issues? Because if a guy comes in and he's like, Doc, this is where the pain is. It's like right here, in my low back, it's shooting down my left leg. And then I tell him, hey, I got to take x-rays actually in your neck. Why do you think that is? Because it's more important.
That's where everything starts.
Yeah. Because the thing is, if I worked on the low back all day long and I was working on like a pinched nerve or something like that down there, but the neck had compression, the neck had a pinch, the neck had an issue on the same nerves that physically come out in the low back, they physically have to travel through the neck first. So if I have a problem up there and I don't address it higher in the chain, or higher up in the hierarchy, if you will, this is more important technically than my low back is. So my body will do whatever it can to guard and protect this area above, down here. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. God made us wired, not wireless. So we got to address the same wires coming out of the low back right up there in the neck. So that is the first place that we're going to look. This is a side view x-ray in the neck. So basically, you're looking at the skull, that's your head, bones that are in the neck, top bone, and then three things that we're going to be looking for on your neck x-ray. First thing, real simple, is you have to have a curve. Scientists call this curve our arc of life. Your arc needs to measure 43 degrees. Anywhere between 42 and 45 is considered normal, so we pick 43 as that average. So the bones in the neck should form a nice arc. Arc is the strongest structure known to man. Natchez Trace Bridge right here, Roman aqueducts, a lot of the original bridge structures that we've developed were all curves in an arc, 43 degrees. Go figure. St. Louis Archway as well, strongest structure known to man. So scientists have done studies with this, and they found that if you had the proper curve in your neck, you'd have to apply so much downward force from gravity, you would fracture and break those bones before your discs, the soft, squishy things in between those bones, would ever herniate. Kind of crazy. And then what they found is if you lose just half of that curve and you start to straighten the neck and you apply pressure downward, not a sound structure anymore. It actually shifts the weight towards the front and starts compressing those discs. So number one, you have to have an arc of life. And so we'll tell you when we look at your x-rays together where you're at on that arc or on that continuum. How much of that arc do you actually still have? Then number two, we're looking at the top bone in the neck. So the top bone in the neck is actually kind of cool. Top bone is called atlas. This is what it looks like from above. It's a big signet ring. It's like what it's shaped like. All 58 million nerves, my spinal cord go right through that bone. So that bone, if it isn't sitting in the right position, actually can cause significant damage to our nervous system right at the connection between your brain and your spinal cord. So what do you guys think your brainstem, because that's what it's called, what do you think your brainstem controls?
All your autonomic function.
Yeah, so not a trick question, everything you're not thinking about. Heart, with your blood pulse, respiration and breathing, how you sleep at night, your circadian rhythm, your hormones. It even goes all the way down with a branch to your digestive system. Kind of crazy. So a lot of things that we aren't really thinking about that are controlled right at the root of the neck. This is the bone that protects it. Atlas was a Greek god who had to hold the world on his shoulders. This holds our world up. In fact, if you're looking, the angle that that bone in the top part of the neck sits at has to be like an airplane taking off at 18 degrees. Cool? If it looks like an airplane taking off, I'm good. If it looks like an airplane landing, not good. Pressure on the brainstem. So that top bone in the neck starts landing, it pushes up like that, puts compression and pressure right on the brainstem. If it starts to take off like a rocket ship and go the other way, again, problems, pressure on the brainstem. So we want to make sure that that bone's sitting at the correct angle. And then the last thing is real simple. In between the bones, we're looking for nice, good spacing. Everybody say spacing.
Spacing.
There you go. Okay, so right here, the dark spaces in between those bones should be nice and equal in height or thickness. That tells us that the disc itself is very, very healthy. Our discs are 88% water. A lot of people don't realize that water is super important to our health, and your discs are one of those things that if you don't use it, you lose it. It dehydrates in time. And so what the research has found, very simple, if you misalign two bones in your spine, you put them in the wrong position and then leave them, in as little as 6 to 8 weeks, the disc already begins to degenerate. It dehydrates because it doesn't have proper motion. And part of the reason for that is you have blood vessels from the moment you're born that bring fresh blood, nutrients, and oxygen to each of those discs in your spine. Then we turn 23, 24, prefrontal cortex fully develops, and all of a sudden those blood vessels dry up. So from that point onward in life, the only way to keep those discs healthy is through a pumping motion. Nice, healthy movement. This is why when you got adjusted, you were doing that wobble cushion thing, right? Because that wobble cushion thing brings you through full range of motion, and it forces our body to rehydrate that disc. All right, so what were the 3 things we're looking for? Number 1, arc of life. Number 2, atlas, or airplane, needs to be at an 18-degree angle. And number 3, we're looking for spacing. Now, where's the most important area we have to have spacing? It's not actually on those, it's right up here. It's above and below my atlas bone. If I don't have spacing up there, that's the first thing that we need to correct. Because it's gonna smush the spinal cord right at the root, right at the brainstem. Do you guys remember what happened to Christopher Reeves, Superman, the actor? Anybody? So Christopher Reeves was riding along on his horse. He had a horsing accident where he fell off the horse, jutted his chin into the ground, and the top bone in his neck actually shoved forward. It pushed forward and it went right into his brainstem. So that top bone went like that, essentially. And I don't know if you guys remember his story or not. Maybe I'm dating myself here, I don't know. But Christopher Reeves ended up, from that moment onward, actually quadriplegic, completely paralyzed from the neck down. This is how important this top bone is in your neck. Guess how much he moved that bone? Everybody hold up your pinky. 1/4 inch, the width of your pinky. That's all that bone moved, and in an instant, it cut off life from his brain, going down to the organs in the body. He had to have a pacemaker to beat his heart. He had to have iron lungs, pump and breathe his lungs for him. He lived off of machines, guys. He even had a team of specialists that would push on his gut so he could go to the bathroom in a colostomy bag. Not cool. In my opinion, even if he lived 18 years after that accident, he died when that accident happened. Because his life, his quality of life, was just never the same. So, if that top bone in your neck, your atlas, is even out 1 degree, do you think I'm gonna say something? Heck yeah, because I care. Because if 1/4 inch is enough to cut it all off like that, what do you think a degree, 2 degrees, 7 degrees is doing? Same thing, just over a longer period of time. So, in time, this is a time-lapse video showing you from a normal curve, normal healthy curve in your neck, over time how gravity starts to pull your head forward. Our neck straightens, and it's different phases, if you will, of degeneration. So when we look at your x-rays, we take x-rays, snapshot in time, snapshot in time, snapshot in time. That x-ray that we took with you is where you are currently at in this process. You might think, oh no, that only happens to some people. Every single person on the face of this planet, including myself, goes through this process of degenerative change because gravity is a constant for every single one of us. Raise your hand if gravity doesn't affect you. Didn't think so. So when we look at your x-rays, I'm going to let you know what phase of degeneration are you in. What that means is, where are you at in that process? So if you were to look at the x-rays, the same angle or the same side view that you're looking at here, you've got different phases of degeneration. Normal is healthy. That's if you've been doing chiropractic care, chirotherapy, spinal rehab, and you do your exercises at home. You've got a good looking curve in the neck. No major nerve issues that you have to worry about. Now if I fast forward 8 to 12 years, on average, some people it could be longer, but on average 8 to 12 years of muscle memory, gravity weighing down on my spine, Again, driving like a duck, sleeping like a pretzel, texting on the cell phone, all the stuff that we do sitting at a computer for 8 hours on end every day. Then I do nothing to intervene with that process, and over time, that's where I end up. So phase 1 degeneration, if I tell you you're phase 1, technically it's good, because it means you're not phase 2 or phase 3. Phase 2 and 3 is over a longer period of time, I still lose my curve, but now instead of my neck being straight, it starts curving in the wrong direction. My neck's curving in the wrong direction. It really begins to severely degenerate the discs in between those bones and put massive crushing pressure on nerves. We don't want that. This is anywhere from 12 to 20 plus years of degeneration. And then if I let it continue to go, as you saw in the end of the video, eventually my body will actually fuse bones together because our brain's intelligent. It doesn't want nerve pressure. And if it senses nerve pressure, it'll do anything and everything it can to adapt and try and fix it. Stop further nerve damage. So what would it do? It'll even reshape your bones. So some of you, I may end up saying, hey, look, you've got bony degenerative changes, you've got an osteophyte, a bone spur. That's what that means. It means it's been there for long enough that your body's starting to reshape it. So the only way to stop that process is to stop that process. Because as you're seeing on the video here, this is inevitable. It's a reality. It happens to every single one of us. It's like gravity. In fact, I have people that say, I believe in chiropractic, or I don't believe in chiropractic. Guys, chiropractic is not a belief system. It doesn't matter if you believe it or not. You can't deny the fact that that process is taking place. It's like gravity. I don't believe in gravity, I don't believe in gravity. When I drop that marker, what happens? Every single time. So if I understand gravity is this principle, and gravity is going to pull the marker down, then what do you think I would need to do to stop the marker from falling? Catch it. And that's exactly what we did with you guys. We took x-rays, snapshot in time, we're catching you in this process. And now my job is to make sure you understand how important it is so we can help you move back. So we're catching you here and we need to move back. Rehab the spine, put it back to where it belongs, and restore the life that you should have down in the bottom. So with that being said, I'll tell you a little bit about when I was growing up, if you guys don't mind. When I was younger, I didn't have health. So like I was saying, most important thing, health, I didn't have it when I was younger. When I was 3, I had a really bad asthma attack. Mom rushes me off to the hospital. They were able to get the breathing under control, but then after that, next 13 years of my life was all asthma inhalers. I took 2 different asthma inhalers every day. Allergy medication, I would have hives and whole body allergic reactions. When they tested me, they found out I was like the boy in the bubble, literally allergic to everything. Cat hair, dog hair, fresh cut grass, tree leaves, like my own dead skin, dust. So I was allergic to all of those things. So I took allergy meds every day, and then eventually they talked me into, well, you need allergy booster shots. So I did 3 of those a week for 4 years. Here I am, 17 years old. Couldn't play the sports that I wanted to play because I couldn't breathe. I've been taking medications for the past 13, almost 14 years. And then for the first time in my life, I meet a chiropractor. Go figure. He takes x-rays in the top part of my back and he finds from the front view that my spine is curving to the side. This is the first time I ever had a doctor sit me down and tell me this is what's causing your problem. And I'll get back to that in just a second. Mind you, the entire time that I was growing up and I was dealing with health issues and I was struggling, I'm sure you guys can all relate to this. When you're dealing with a problem, you're going through a tough time, you look for inspiration. You look for hope, right? So for me, my inspiration, my hope was my grandfather. I used to look up to my grandfather as being the epitome of health. Here I was struggling with asthma, allergies, and every time I got to spend time with my grandfather, he would always be like just a breath of fresh air. He'd be encouraging, he'd be super positive, and as far as I knew, he had no major health issues. His employer mandated, as part of his job, for him to continue working on a yearly basis, he had to go get a physical. So he'd go to the doctor every single year, they'd put a blood pressure cuff on his arm, look up his nose, down his throat, check all of his vitals. And they said, clean bill of health, clean bill of health, clean bill of health. And then when I'm growing up, here I am, 16 years old, grandfather walking out of the gym in the Bronx, New York, dropped out of a heart attack. I never got to say goodbye to my grandfather, and the entire time I thought he was healthy. It took everybody in our family by surprise. We didn't expect it. We knew he had slightly high blood pressure and he was taking a medication for it, but like that's normal, right? We all take high blood pressure medication, or like a lot of us do. I just had a patient that came in this morning who's 30 years old. He's a guy already on amlodipine to control his blood pressure. The point I'm getting to is my grandfather never went to a chiropractor. He never had his spine evaluated. He didn't believe in chiropractic. And so he could have been walking around for years with damage on his nerves, and he just didn't know it. He didn't feel it, he didn't have pain, but it was shutting down his organs. It was shutting down life going to his heart. And the reason why I say that is that when you lose the curve in your neck and you go from this normal to a straight to curving in the wrong direction, I take x-rays so I can see the bones and I can help you guys with the alignment, but it's really not about the bones. I don't care about bones. I care about what the bones are surrounding and protecting. And the reality is, the research with MRIs, if I were to look at, like chop off your head, if you will, right? And I look at your spine from above, they found that when you have a healthy curve in your neck, the spinal cord, that guy right there, is nice and relaxed. It's big, it's thick, it's plump. There's no tension on the spinal cord. And you can feel this if you put your hand up, curve in your hand, the skin on your palm, that's your spinal cord. Over time, when you lose your curve, what happened to your skin? That's exactly what happens to your spinal cord inside the bones. They found that when you lose the curve in your neck, even when you get down to a phase 1 degeneration, it will decrease the diameter, the thickness of the spinal cord by 30%. That means 30% less life going from my brain to every single organ in my body. I guarantee you, I know for sure, absolutely that's what happened to my grandfather. And I want to make sure that that doesn't happen to you, to any other patient that comes into our clinic, which is why I'm so adamant about let's take x-rays, let's see what's going on beneath the surface regardless of whether or not you feel it. So when we go over your x-rays, we're going to say which phase degeneration you are. Who do you think requires more work and care to get fixed, if you will, or to go back to as close to normal? Phase 1 or phase 2? Phase 2. Because it's a problem that's been there longer, it's more advanced, there's more degeneration. So it requires more work. So we come up with the recommendations for care based off of that. Now let's shift gears a little bit. What's normal from the back view? So we look at the neck, we get that x-ray taken care of, we also get to look at the rest of the spine. Because if you are dealing with low back or hip issues, then we need to make sure that everything looks right. So basically with this, and you'll see right down here at the bottom, the very, very top of the hip bones. And we're taking an x-ray from this front view. Basically, we're looking for whether or not your spine is straight. So the hips need to be nice and level. If it looks like that, healthy or sick?
Sick.
Right? The spine isn't straight and curves right there, healthy or sick?
Sick.
Okay. So you guys get it. I hate saying it's that simple, but that's pretty much how simple it is. And so we'll look at a couple of x-rays here just as an example. On your x-rays, you'll see red lines are going to mark the center of the bones. This is a healthy x-ray. It's what we're looking for. When there's red lines, the center of the bones, to match up with the vertical black line. Now, if instead my spine looked like this, would you say healthy or sick?
Sick.
Yeah, no bueno. This is scoliosis, right? So when you see scoliosis or side bend in the spine, we'll put up what looks like this on your x-rays if it does look like that. And then where the curve is the worst, just look at how far away from the center line. Wherever it's furthest from the center line, that level of your spine will have nerve pressure. That's where we're going to be focusing most, is right there. So for this person, it would be right that, between those two bones, which is the level of L3. Those nerves go right to digestive system, reproductive organs. So you could end up having issues with both of those. In fact, you don't have to be an adult to have issues. We take care of kids. Earliest, the youngest patient was 3 minutes old. Oldest patient of ours here so far at Stronghold has been 94 years old. Miss Pearl. She's super sweet. So with that being said, this is a kid that's 7 years old. She had been to multiple different doctors. She was wetting her bed. She had constipation, digestive issues, and allergies. And after going to 6 different doctors, mom finally brings her in. We take x-rays on her and boom, red lines are where she's at. The black line is where she should be. She has a 7-degree scoliosis, side bend in her low back. So if the curve is in her spine, it's not sitting in the right position. We know based on the science that when the spine bends, instead of protecting the nerve, it does what? Pinches, damages that nerve. So look at the levels of the spine where she's got pinch and damage, and those same levels of the spine, pinch and damage, well, guess where those nerves go? Right to the bladder, right to the digestive system. If I squeeze the nerves to the bladder, is it easier or harder to hold your pee? Harder. So it's part of the reason why she was wetting her bed, and she also had constipation. So she had been taking medications for this for a long time now, and after 6 doctors, nobody looked at the nervous system, but boom, there it was. Thankfully, we were able to catch this early for her, and we were able to help her out. Here's another patient. So with this patient, not sure if you guys can see this or not. I'm not going to go into the entire backstory, but she's been dealing with migraine headaches for 17 years. She has incredible low back pain, incredible upper back pain, numbness and tingling and burning sensation in her fingers. And when we started looking at her health history, we took x-rays with her. You're going to see this is a back view. That's left hip, right hip, 35-degree curve or 35-degree scoliosis in her low back. What breaks my heart with this girl, Jessica, a patient of ours, is we couldn't get to her sooner. What breaks my heart is she had scoliosis developing in her spine. She never had pain until it got pretty severe. When she was younger, she got diagnosed with scoliosis, the side bend in the spine. They didn't do anything about it though because she wasn't having any pain. And it was left and it progressed and got worse and worse and worse. And this isn't like your teeth fall out and you can get dentures to replace your teeth. Like, you only get one shot with your spine. And for her, unfortunately, what ended up happening is they sent her out for $243,000 spinal surgery, where they put metal rods into her spine. And after they did the surgery, her curve that was here, I'm not going to draw on my TV, but she had a 38-degree curve, if I'm not mistaken. That 38-degree curve, afterwards, they reduced it down to 11. And they were like, success, the surgery was successful. I asked her, I was like, Jessica, how much did you spend on that surgery? Just out of curiosity. She's like, oh, it was great. My insurance covered a majority of it. So what do you mean a majority of it? My insurance covered 90%. So she's left over with 10% of that bill, of the $243,000, $23,000 to put that in her spine, never coming out. And what breaks my heart is right underneath that metal rod, guess what? It got worse. And if you look closely, you probably can't see it on the video, but she's got bony change, degeneration taking place in that area of the spine. Thankfully for her though, the migraine headaches that she was having for 17 years, she was taking Imitrex medication for it. They were debilitating migraines. She was having 6 a week. We started her on a corrective care plan, and even with rods in the spine, we were able to see a little bit of improvement. This 35-degree curve in her low back, after 3 months of care, went down to 30. It doesn't look like night and day difference, but 5 degrees less of nerve pressure. Is it better or worse? Is it worth it? I don't know, you ask her. She came off of 2 medications that she was taking for the migraines, and she was spending money out of pocket because insurance ended up dropping her from pre-existing conditions. She was spending almost $300 a month on migraine medications. Crazy. So if you asked her, is it worth it? She'd say absolutely. She'd do it 10 times over because she knows chiropractic care and taking care of her spine is absolutely crucial to her health. So we're going to shift gears back to the neck now. We've got another patient, this guy Bob, comes in Hawaiian t-shirt, super energetic, hyper, all over the place. He talks like this: hi Dr. Dave, super awesome to see you, I'm happy to live there. Never sleeps, insomniac, has headaches, and you know, he's dealing with some thyroid issues too. Normal, right? We all deal with it. No. But we took x-rays with him, and it turns out that Bob was going to another chiropractor for about 15 years at this point in time. And while he was going to this other chiropractor, long story short, he would get adjusted, migraine would get a little better, headache would go away, he'd feel pretty good, and then he would just go for his monthly adjustments. And I asked him, I was like, Bob, are you kidding me? Like, why were you going and only getting adjusted once a month? Because we took his x-rays, and on his x-rays, if you can't see this, the blue lines are where his spine is at, that red arc is where he should be, he should have a 43-degree curve in his neck. If you've been getting adjusted for 15 years, shouldn't your spine look pretty good? Yeah. Well, it turns out he had a 16 when he should have been 43 for his arc of life. Is Bob healthy or sick? Technically sick. He's at a phase 1 degeneration. He's lost a lot of the curve in his neck. He's got pressure on the nerves. And if you look at the spacing, remember that third thing we're looking for? Do you see thick, thick, skinny? That skinny disc means that he's got compression taking place there. The nerve that comes out of that level, guess where it goes, guys? Right to the thyroid. Bob had been dealing with thyroid issues. Pinch the nerve, go into an organ, it makes it either go faster or slower, if you will. So instead of hypo, slower, Bob was dealing with hyperthyroidism. He had consistent pressure on the nerves going to his thyroid, and because of it, he was always wound up, his sleep cycle was jacked up, and he would stay up all night as an insomniac. So when we sat down and explained all this stuff to Bob, and he went through an orientation video, it made perfect sense to him that he would get adjusted once a month, he would take one step forward. Then 29 days out of the month, live life took 29 steps backwards. One step forward, 29 backwards, one step forward, 29 backwards, and over 10 years, 15 years, even though he was getting adjusted, he was actually beneath the surface getting worse. So with Bob, we started him on a corrective care plan. And with Bob, on this corrective care plan, we told him, what does necessary care look like? Because I had to be real with him. I was like, look, if you're used to getting adjusted once a month, it's gonna take a little bit more work than once a month for us to get the correction we're looking for in your spine. So I was real with Bob. And we'll be real with you guys when we go over your x-rays in the back. One-on-one, I'm gonna be just telling you, what does it take to get you better? So because of this, I don't sign contracts with insurance companies, because if I do, whose recommendations do I follow? Mine or the insurance company?
The insurance company.
Yeah, and that's not cool, because the insurance company isn't here. They didn't take your x-rays. They're not an expert in the field. They don't know what you need. In fact, insurance doesn't pay for you to get healthy. With Bob, I told him, look, dude, we're gonna need to see you 3 times a week at least for the next couple of weeks before we take a new set of x-rays and potentially graduate you down. So for Bob, he had to understand that, what was he actually paying for when he was getting adjusted at the other chiropractor? Because he was $35 copays, right? So he's like, well, I got adjusted once a month and it was only 35 bucks. I'm like, but how much were you really paying? Because for his insurance copays to even kick in, he had to meet a deductible. His deductible for the year was $2,000. Then, even to have the luxury of having the insurance so that he could pay the copays, he had to pay a premium every month that was $425. So really, over the past 15 years, Bob had been in the habit of investing in health insurance, which actually wasn't getting him healthy. It was letting beneath the surface everything just fall off. $425 a month for 12 months of the year was $5,100 that Bob was spending on his insurance premium. Then after that, he had to meet $2,000 deductible. Then his $35 copays would kick in for 12 visits. He was spending $420 on chiropractic care. So when you add it all together, Bob was actually spending $7,520. So his spine could continue over the years just slowly getting worse, and we want to make sure that doesn't happen for you guys, so I don't sign contracts with insurance companies. Does that mean we can't bill out to insurance? No. It very simply means that we're out of network. And if we're out of network with an insurance company, it just changes what is your deductible amount. And so for what we need to do for you, for all of the care in our office, there has to be a smart way of us being able to bill stuff, to make care more affordable, right? So for Bob, how do we make that work? Well, real simple. For Bob, he was like, well, if I need 50 visits, which is what we recommended, typical phase 1 corrective care plans are around 50 visits, and we're always working to get that better and better to a shorter period of time. He was like, can I just pay as I go? You know, like pay each time I come in. I was like, well, sure you could, but it would be way more expensive than what we prefer to do for our payment simplification or a monthly payment option. So for Bob, I explained to him, look, prehab exercises that you do with the traction and the mobility exercise on the wobble cushion, we would charge you for that because there is a fee for those billing codes or procedure codes. Then the adjustment was $60. And then vibe rehab would be $40. So each visit, technically if you did a pay-per-visit, I have to charge you the fees for the services that were rendered that day, which is $132. So $132 for all 50 visits would come out to $6,600. Is that better than what he was paying before, just going straight up insurance route? Heck yeah. It's actually $1,000 cheaper, and he'd be actually getting what he needs to correct his spine. But we know it's expensive. The reality is, like, when it comes down to it, it's finances. So for Bob, we got him started on a plan, and just in as little as 8 weeks, we saw massive improvement with his spine. He went from 16 to a 33-degree curve in his neck, took pressure off the nerves going to his thyroid, stopped taking his insomnia medication, headaches started to go away, and he was actually seeing pretty massive improvement with his health. But how do we do it? Well, great question. I'll go ahead and walk you guys through it. Very simply, with Bob, instead of doing one of these pay-as-you-go type plans or just going straight up with insurance recommendations and going through insurance, with Bob, we ended up doing a couple different things. First of all, payment simplification plan, there's a certain portion of care, whether you're in-network, out-of-network, you have insurance, you don't have insurance across the board where I can't discount your care. That's called medical necessity. So the medical necessity portion of care I can't discount. So it comes out to very simply $60 adjustments, and then the exercises that we have to charge. So it's close to that $132 per visit. Most people, even if you're at a phase 1, phase 2, or phase 3, it's all dependent on the phase. So if you're at phase 3, it might be 20 visits of care, medical necessity. Most people, though, we try and get it down as low as possibly can, so it's about 10 visits. I'm sure that marker isn't working, but 10 visits of care at the 132. So you're looking at about 1,300. Then we move to phase 2, and in phase 2, or the corrective wellness phase of care, technically, when it comes down to it, if we're delivering the adjustment, we're getting your spine moving in the right direction, we take a follow-up x-ray, and we're starting to see improvement like we were with Bob, very simply, at that point in time, I can justify, well, you're not in pain anymore. And so we're not adjusting for pain, we're doing a wellness adjustment. Wellness adjustment, instead of being $60, is actually only $40. So all the remainder visits at this point in time come out to $40 a visit instead of the regular $60. Then the second thing with Bob we ended up doing is we prescribed him exercises to do at home. And so the exercises and the home care equipment was his way of being able to assure he doesn't have to come see us 3 times a week for the rest of his life. I don't want you guys to do that. I want to respect your time. In fact, your visits after today are going to be like 15 to 20 minute visits. Because life happens and you need to live life, right? You can't be living your life here in this clinic. So for the exercises that he would have been charged for in the office, the 40 and the 32, we actually get rid of those for the remainder of care. So after his first 10 visits, the next 40 visits at $40 come out to about $1,600, and then the cost of home care equipment, which on average comes out to about $299. So with that being said, with Bob, he was able to afford the care because when you add these together, instead of these 6,600 right here, or the 7,520 that he was paying for insurance, it ended up coming out to less than half the cost. And the cool thing about it is the 3,000 ballpark, we ended up doing a monthly payment option for him where we just divided over a set number of months as long as he's coming in to get adjusted, and then it was significantly more affordable. Bob was able to get started on care, and thank God he did because he ended up seeing the results because of it. So the 2 biggest reasons most people end up not starting care, let's just be real about it, it's time and money. When it comes down to it, if you say, you know what, Dr. Dave, I just don't have time to take care of my spine right now, I'll just be very frank and real with you. I'm gonna do whatever we can to help you figure out life situations so that we can get you started. Because I don't want you to get worse. And I know that if you don't take care of your spine now, we're gonna continue going through that process. You come back 5 years from now, 2 years from now, 1 year from now, is it better or is it worse? Worse. And if it's worse, what's it gonna take more of? More time. And spend more money. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't happen for you. So at the end of the day, we'll do whatever we can to help you guys out when it comes to finances. We've got in-house as well as third-party financing options for you through Care Credit. And so that's always an option as well. So don't worry, we'll do the best we can to help you figure that situation out. As long as you're concerned, you care about your health, you want to move in the right direction, I want to let you know that you're in the right place. We're always going to come up 150%. I'm always going to show up. I'm always going to be here. Dr. John, everybody else on our team, we care about you getting better. So with that being said, what we're going to be doing now is actually spending some time looking at your x-rays. We're going to go through that together. We're going to go through some recommendations. There's a couple questions that we're going to ask you. Just number one, what are you seeing on your x-rays? Number two, is this something that you'd like to get corrected? And if so, awesome, fantastic, super. We'll go through recommendations. Let's get the ball rolling with it and let's get you moving in the right direction. Sound good? Okay. So